Hey, Palumbo here with an RX Muscle news update. Just in late last night, PJ Braun and Blackstone Labs was sentenced. To help me talk about it, I got my good friend John Romano here. And John, the last time we discussed this case was when Aaron was sentenced to 54 months in prison, and he was already in custody at that point because of the car accident he had gotten in. And now PJ Braun, his partner at the time at Blackstone Labs, now has been sentenced. He was given 54 months, which is on my 54th birthday, I might add. So.
Which is interesting because he had a prior,
He had a prior, and he also, and Aaron had cooperated. So Aaron theoretically was supposed to get a lesser sentence.
Lesser sentence, and he paid more money in restitution.
Yeah, I mean, according to what I read here, it said that Braun was sentenced to 54 months imprisonment, 3 years supervised release, $200 assessment fee, $29,397.63. Where they got this number from, I don't know. Restitution, and and that's it. He was taken into custody immediately. So they didn't even give these. He didn't give like PJ like a week or a couple of weeks to get his.
That's unusual because he's not a flight risk.
This judge though is known for that. He even warned them ahead of time. PJ knew that he was going right in. He said, you better have everything prepared because you're leaving. Which sucks because then they got to transport you to where ultimately. I know PJ told me, I was talking to him like before he went in for sentencing. He said he had requested Montgomery, Alabama.
Yeah, but first they're going to take him to El Reno, Nevada, and then he's going to go to Milan, and then he's going to go to someplace in Northern California.
Right.
To go across the street, the feds take you to China first.
And shackled too to the guy next to you.
Right.
Yeah. I told PJ, I said, PJ, I feel bad for you because when I had to surrender when I did my 5 months, I actually flew to Morgantown, West Virginia. I stayed overnight in a hotel. I went out to dinner. The next morning, I showed up at the front gate, which there is no gate. I just knocked on the door, and they're like, come in. I'm like, I'm here for my vacation, I said. And that was it. I never saw a handcuff or a jail cell or anything.
Well, that was not my experience.
No, I know. Well, I know you got they caught you. That's why.
Yeah, they caught me. Yeah. Good difference.
Now, on a good note, PJ could have gotten a lot more time. So I think that I said right from the beginning after Aaron was sentenced, I told my wife, I said, they're going to get the same sentence because the judge is going to look at the case. He's going to be like, these two dummies did the same exact crime. Aaron did eventually come forth and cooperate at the 11th hour before they were supposed to go to trial, but then he went and crashed the boat. He violated the terms of his I guess supervised release, and then after getting a second chance, he did it again and he crashed the car. So I think he lost all favor with the judge if he was going to get a lighter sentence.
The more now that PJ's sentence is in and Blackstone that's a whole other topic I want to get to in a second. I'm even more convinced now that had they handled this differently from the beginning, that at least Aaron would be walking right now.
My friend Mike Popkin, who's a lawyer, as you know, he told me, he said if they would have gone right in and said, "Hey, you got me," right from as soon as they were indicted. He said he really thinks they would have gotten 2 years.
The first letter that they send you.
2 years, and you know what? 2 years means that's a year because you get off for the drug program. So, and they might have got halfway house even for 6 months.
I've talked to a couple of people about that drug program since we last spoke about it, and it looks like a shiny apple on the outside.
Oh,
once you take a bite out of it, there's a half a worm in it, and you know where the other half is.
Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of guys decline it. They don't take it because they'll end up spending more time, and because like you said, they keep setting the clock back.
They'll restart you. Yeah. You can get to 2 months of it, and then you screw up, and then they start you at day one again.
Yep.
And let me tell you, because I knew a lot of guys in it when I was in there. It sucks for them. They're living under like martial law. It's like you're in the worst reform school of your life. But for guys who have a long time to do, they could save almost, a year and a half sometimes,
it generally doesn't work out that way.
No, yeah. Well, I think Aaron will have a tough time doing the program. I think PJ might be much more successful with the program.
And you know, the people who work these things are sadistic to begin with.
Oh, absolutely.
You know? So they want you to.
They're usually women too. Yeah.
Yeah, they say, "You're not getting out of here in 6 months. You're fucking out of your mind. A year and 6 months, maybe." You know. So.
So you know what the biggest mistake people make, John, is they start calculating and talking to each other. I'll be out now in 6 months. Like they assume that they're getting the most possible time off of the drug program, which never happens, like you said. And then they had this arrogant air about themselves, which those people always wind up repeating it a couple of times.
Yeah, you're better off just trying to get a long halfway house, you know, and just not doing the drug program.
I got news for you. I knew a guy who worked out in prison. I used to squat and deadlift with this guy. He was great, and he declined. You know how like you can get out and then you got like 6 months probation. Some of these guys. He stayed in. He's like, I don't want any probation. I'll stay in for the 6 months in
because they fuck with you. It's a hassle. You got to go to the office. You got to sit there with all the other fucking convicts, and you know you got to wait. And then they talk to you, and then they go make you go give you a form, and you got to go try to get a job, and they got to fill it. You're running around like a fucking train wreck. So. You know, I agree with him. You know, if I had to go through this again, God forbid, I would. You're going to find me with a stack of books, with my feet up, and fuck everybody. You know, so I'll do an extra 6 months. But the travesty, I believe, in all of this, falls on the feet of poor Jared Wheat. Who's got to cough up $1 million now?
Yeah, 1.2 million he has to forfeit. Yeah, and he was on probation for 5 years. I don't know what that means, but you know.
But was he part of this?
He was funding the whole thing, so he was part owner. Yeah, and according to this, I didn't know if you knew this. You know, he's actually facing his own criminal charges again in an unrelated case. He and the company, as well as a third defendant, were charged in grand jury indictment with wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy to introduce misbranded drugs, and interstate commerce, and other crimes. So, but that's been going on since like 2017, I think. That
because this, and you know why? It's because Jared beat him. He beat them.
And he did go to jail twice, though, John. So he only beat him once or twice, maybe.
He beat him once, I think, maybe twice. Well, but he did beat them.
Yeah.
Once you do that, you're on that list. They are not going to rest. It's if the Fed great grandchildren end up being feds, they're going to be harassing their family member. I'm telling you, they hate being beaten.
Yeah. I think Jared likes litigating stuff too.
He does, but the stakes are so freaking high right now.
I don't know. I think he's crazy. Now, the other defendant, James Bacuzzi, who's maybe the dumbest one of all, went to trial. Remember?
Yeah.
And he's scheduled to be sentenced on March 11th. And Joey Ventrella, he got 13 months. He's the guy who had the separate lab set up where Aaron, PJ, and him set up their own little lab to make the stuff because they couldn't legally sell it. He got 13 months, which is, I think he did pretty well for himself. He was the
chemist.
Yeah, he was the guy. I think they were using him as the front guy, actually.
And he got 13. Now, do any of these guys have a coffee cans full of fucking cash buried somewhere? Or?
I think the only person who's got any cash, to be honest with you, is Aaron. And I forgot, I talked to Rob DiMaggio, who was the original owner of Iron Mag Labs, who then helped finance Aaron. And he told me he gave them $1 million when they started Blackstone. He said he should never have gotten into it, but he did it. And I think somehow Aaron and PJ screwed him over a little bit, but at some point, I guess he said he saw the writing on the wall. So he just sold his portion to them, which a lot of people thought he was crazy because the company was making a lot of money at the time. But he said he saw them driving around in Ferraris and, Lamborghinis. He got very nervous. So he sold it. Thank God he did it, because you know what? He would have been in deep shit if he would have stayed with them.
Yes, he would.
So he got out before it got crazy. And I think that's why they gave him a deal. He got 3 years probation.
So, this is like the end of a saga here, the end of an era,
Yeah.
I mean, this is kind of big. I mean, you'll always look back on
It's one of the biggest cases, I think, in supplement law, not like steroid convictions. Right. We're talking about like in supplements, like where someone in the supplement industry perpetrated fraud on the community, you know, and got really punished bad for it.
And near and dear to us. I mean, Aaron slept in houses. You know, he slept on my couch. Yeah. You're a lieutenant.
Aaron and PJ, you know, PJ worked for me for years. I worked with him as an athlete. Aaron, you know, we groomed him, you know, in RX Muscle.
Yep.
But you knew and I know the day when we went to that Arnold class of the Olympia and they had their pictures up on the, you know, that Blues Brothers pictures, I said, "Oh boy, this is not going to end."
It was like what, 150 feet high?
Yes, it was the whole God knows
what they side of the hotel with their and they looked like gangsters too. You know,
super. I said it's like a scene from a movie. You like, this is not going to end well.
That was I forgot. I think I was with you when we first.
We just shook our head.
We turned to each other. We didn't even have to say anything. I just remember shaking my head and going, "Oh God, that was you know." It was that. You know what was the other thing? The other thing that creeped me out about his ego, Aaron's, was that whole Sandow scam on eBay.
Oh yeah, well, Aaron was just obsessed with money, which is fine if you're making it legitimately. You can be obsessed as you want.
No, but his explanation, but before he got called on it, his explanation for why he spent 10 grand on the Sandows, because you know he thinks he deserves it because what he accomplished is Olympian event, you know, and so like he's rewarding himself by buying a Sandow that he fictitiously listed that didn't exist.
Yeah, they definitely both of them got carried away with the whole.
But I mean, come on, there's 12. How many Mr. Olympias has there been? 16, 15? I mean, who the fuck would sell their Sandow? You know,
I know. And, well, maybe
on eBay, no less.
Who knows? So people do some wacky things out there, but. You know, look, you know, in the end, I think PJ was remorseful about what he did, you know, and he probably came off as the more sympathetic of the two. And initially he didn't, you know, Aaron was a little more sympathetic initially, but then Aaron started doing crazy things like throwing, you know, Christmas parties at Mar-a-Lago and bragging about all the money he was making. And, you know, it's not, you do that after you get out of your case is over. You don't do that before. That rubs the fence.
Well, you know, it all comes down to what do you have? You know, if you end up going through this whole ringer of a federal case, and drag your family through it, and your business and the people who work for you, and create all of this turmoil, go to prison, have your whole family have to deal with that, the kids in the visiting room on Sunday and all of that, and if you go through all of that, and then you got to spend 4.5 years locked up, and you go through all of that again, and you end up at the end of that tunnel, and you got $35. I mean, that right there is the biggest punishment that you could possibly get, is getting through that mill, and then end up with zero. Now, if you got $10 million stashed away, you're gonna.
I think Aaron is gonna come out financially very well.
Well, then you're gonna have me requesting Hawaiian shirts get sent into the fucking.
No, look, from a financial standpoint, Aaron made out very well because he was very successful at Redcon. It's still successful. He never wasn't running the company anyway. He's got a guy in there who's Eric Hard, who knows exactly what he's doing. And that company will probably, when Aaron gets out, will probably be worth $100 million. You know, so
that's the other part of this that saddens me, is that, you know, I look at the two of them, and I you know, PJ was not the brains of the operation. No. Okay, I mean, and no disrespect, PJ, but there's a front man and the follow up guy. You weren't leading the pack, and by that I mean sadness is that when this is over 5 years from now, and Aaron's going to walk back into a very cush lifestyle, and PJ's, where's PJ going? You know,
I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know if Blackstone Labs will be there for him. I don't know. Jared may have disbanded it, or who knows what.
Yeah, 4.5 years is a long time in the supplement business.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think the biggest unfortunate thing in this, to me, knowing PJ, is if he did not stash multiple millions of dollars somewhere.
I don't think he did. I don't think.
And he's just going to be another fucking swinging dick in the yard, man. When he gets out, he's going to be.
Let me ask you this question: is he allowed to be paid while he's in prison? No, right?
I mean, not directly, no.
Yeah. Well, he might be able to take disbursements. His father might be able to.
I mean, I'm sure they can. A suave accountant can figure out how to do that.
So he might have something when he gets out. And PJ's very, he's a hustler.
I hope so. I would hate to see him go through all of this and then end up just another fucking schlub from ground zero.
He won't, because he could always train people and do coaching if he had to, and he was making a lot of money doing it before, so he's personable. He'll probably be very well liked in prison, I'm sure. not in that sense. And I'll tell you, everyone's going to ask him for weight training programs.
What do you mean by that, dude? Yeah.
Well, the Blackstone Labs Singerman Braun case has been officially settled now. Yep. It's just the one James Bacuzzi is waiting a sentencing, but I don't think that's even relevant at this point. Aaron and PJ both get 54 months. In federal prison, where you do 80% of that or 85% of that, they're going to probably have to do 45 months, but then they're going to probably get off maybe a year off of that for the drug program. So that would take them down to about 3. They might get out in 3 years, John.
I wouldn't count on that drug keep
We'll see if you're right. We'll have to keep following the story as it progresses.
And you know what? I mean, the personal struggle with your family aside. I mean, if you were a single guy, PJ's single, right?
Yeah.
To me, if you're single, you got no attachments, you got money stashed away, 4.5 years in prison camp. Are you kidding me? That's a vacation. I'll use that time. I'll study some shit. I'll learn how to do something, play the drums again, and then you come out of that 4.5 years later, you're rested, you're de-stressed, you probably look 10 years younger, You're gonna go dig up your coffee cans and buy a nice car when you get out. Yeah, I would do that standing on my freaking head.
Right. It's different for Aaron because obviously he's got the 3 kids.
Yeah, that's the kids. I don't know how it was where you were in Morgantown, but the visit to me, I only had 2 visits in 2 years.
I didn't have any visits. I didn't want any.
I didn't want any. I had to have these 2, and I told them both never come back. And it's you got to get dressed in the khakis, right? And you put the jellies on, and then you got to go over to the visiting room, and then they have to get searched and fingerprinted and all the shit. Your little kid, 4 years old, has got to get searched by a fucking goon, right? Yeah, and then they get in, and what do you got? You got a visiting room with picnic tables with other convicts and the same shit going on, everybody crying, screaming, and it's such a fucking disaster in there, man. I just cannot imagine subjecting a child to that. I would just say, Daddy's got to go away for a little while,
right?
We'll keep in touch via email, and when do good in school, and when I get out. When I see you again, we'll, pick up where we left off.
I'll tell you. I'll just give you one more personal anecdote on my part. I had COVID this past, 2 weeks or whatever, and so I had to isolate from the family. So I was at my building, when they were at the house downstairs, and then when they went upstairs to go to sleep, I would come back to the house and do whatever I do. And after 7 days of doing that, I was so depressed that I couldn't hold my kids and see my kids. 7 days. I thought that, and I was seeing them outside across the driveway. I just couldn't. I didn't want to get anyone sick. But that was 7 days, John. I can't even envision what it would be like to be gone 3-4 years.
It's got to be one of those. I mean, there's a punishment for you right there, man.
That's really his punishment.
Yeah, that's about as severe as it gets. Yeah,
and you know what? I probably would have paid every dime that I made to avoid any kind of jail time, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Aaron probably feels exactly the same way because he figures.
I'm sure they have a lot of regret at this point. You know, they could have done things differently, but
that's the way it goes.
They're still
Where
young.
What,
PJ's what, 54, 55?
No, they're in their 40s. Two of them. Yeah.
So then I thought you said he got 54 months on his 54th birthday.
No, on my 54th.
Oh, your 54th birthday. Your kid. So so they're kids. They're young. They'll get out, and everything will be fine.
They'll be fine. Yeah, they'll be fine.
At least
by the time they're my age, your age is already too far gone. By the time they're my age, they won't even remember it anymore.
Dude, if I caught a charge right now and had to go away, if it was 2 weeks, it would be a life sentence. I'm telling you.
All right, well, it seems like there's always some crazy story going on in our industry. We have a very unique group of people with very creative stuff that goes on, but a lot of the creativity is destructive creativity. So we're always reporting these nutty stories. Wait till Richard Rodriguez is supposed to get out of prison in, I think, next month, and supposedly we're going to get him on the show.
We'll get him.
Wait till we tell that story. That story makes Aaron's story like nothing. I think he got less time than them, right?
Yeah, well, yes, he did get less time,
which is incredible.
There's some blowback, from the piano camp about the silicone, Johnny Bravo.
Yeah, I know. We'll talk about that in after.
We're going to have to talk about that.
Yeah. All right. For now, though, I'm Dave Palumbo with John Romano for an RX Muscle news update.